Hello friends, I'm Ellie, welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, listen to the meaningful fairy tales that I am about to tell you. First fairy tale, the brother and sister. The brother took his sister's hand and said to her,
"Since our mother died, we have had no good days. Our stepmother beats us every day, and if we go near her, she kicks us away. We have nothing to eat but hard crusts of bread left over. The dog under the table fares better. He gets a good piece every now and then. If our mother only knew how she would pity us. Come, let us go together out into the wide world."
So they went and journeyed the whole day through fields and meadows and stony places, and if it rained, the sister said,
"The skies and we are weeping together."
In the evening they came to a great wood, and they were so weary with hunger and their long journey, that they climbed up into a high tree and fell asleep. The next morning, when they awoke, the sun was high in heaven and shone brightly through the leaves. Then said the brother,
"Sister, I am thirsty. If I only knew where to find a brook, that I might go and drink. I almost think that I hear one rushing."
So the brother got down and led his sister by the hand, and they went to seek the brook. But their wicked stepmother was a witch, and had known quite well that the two children had run away, and had sneaked after them as only witches can, and had laid a spell on all the brooks in the forest. So when they found a little stream flowing smoothly over its pebbles, the brother was going to drink of it, but the sister heard how it said in its rushing,
"He a tiger will be who drinks of me. Who drinks of me a tiger will be."
Then the sister cried,
"Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a wild beast and will tear me in pieces."
So the brother refrained from drinking, though his thirst was great, and he said he would wait till he came to the next brook. When they came to a second brook, the sister heard it say,
"He a wolf will be who drinks of me. Who drinks of me a wolf will be."
Then the sister cried,
"Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will be turned into a wolf and will eat me up."
So the brother refrained from drinking, and said,
"I will wait until we come to the next brook, and then I must drink. Whatever you say, my thirst is so great."
And when they came to the third brook, the sister heard how in its rushing it said,
"Who drinks of me a fawn will be. He a fawn will be who drinks of me."
Then the sister said,
"Oh, my brother, I pray drink not, or you will be turned into a fawn and run away far from me."
But he had already kneeled by the side of the brook and stooped and drunk of the water. And as the first drop passed his lips, he became a fawn. And the sister wept over her poor lost brother. And the fawn wept also, and stayed sadly beside her. At last the maiden said,
"Be comforted, dear fawn, indeed I will never leave you."
Then she untied her golden girdle, and bound it round the fawn's neck, and went and gathered rushes to make a soft cord, which she fastened to him, and then she led him on, and they went deeper into the forest. And when they had gone a long, long way, they came at last to a little house, and the maiden looked inside, and as it was empty she thought,
"We might as well live here."
and she fetched leaves and moss to make a soft bed for the fawn. And every morning she went out and gathered roots and berries and nuts for herself, and fresh grass for the fawn, who ate out of her hand with joy, frolicking round her. At night, when the sister was tired, and had said her prayers, she laid her head on the fawn's back, which served her for a pillow, and softly fell asleep. And if only the brother could have got back his own shape again, it would have been a charming life. So they lived a long while in the wilderness alone. Now it happened that the king of that country held a great hunt in the forest. The blowing of the horns, the barking of the dogs, and the lusty shouts of the huntsmen sounded through the wood, and the fawn heard them and was eager to be among them.
"Oh,
Said he to his sister,
do let me go to the hunt. I cannot stay behind any longer."
and begged so long that at last she consented.
"Good mind.
Said she to him,
Come back to me at night. I must lock my door against the wild hunters, so in order that I may know you, you must knock and say, 'Little sister, let me in,' and unless I hear that, I shall not unlock the door."
Then the fawn sprang out, and felt glad and merry in the open air. The king and his huntsmen saw the beautiful animal, and began at once to pursue him. But they could not come within reach of him, for when they thought they were certain of him, he sprang away over the bushes and disappeared. As soon as it was dark, he went back to the little house, knocked at the door, and said,
"Little sister, let me in."
Then the door was opened to him, and he went in and rested the whole night long on his soft bed. The next morning the hunt began anew, and when the fawn heard the hunting horns and the tally-ho of the huntsman, he could rest no longer and said,
Little sister, let me out. I must go.
The sister opened the door and said,
Now, mind you must come back at night and say the same words.
When the king and his hunters saw the fawn with the golden collar again, they chased him closely, but he was too nimble and swift for them. This lasted the whole day, and at last the hunters surrounded him, and one of them wounded his foot a little so that he was obliged to limp and to go slowly. Then a hunter slipped after him to the little house and heard how he called out,
Little sister, let me in.
and saw the door open and shut again after him directly. The hunter noticed all this carefully, went to the king, and told him all he had seen and heard. Then said the king,
Tomorrow we will hunt again.
But the sister was very terrified when she saw that her fawn was wounded. She washed his foot, laid cooling leaves round it, and said,
Lie down on your bed, dear fawn, and rest that you may be soon well.
The wound was very slight, so that the fawn felt nothing of it the next morning. And when he heard the noise of the hunting outside, he said,
I cannot stay in. I must go after them. I shall not be taken easily again.
The sister began to weep and said,
I know you will be killed, and are left alone here in the forest, and forsaken of everybody. I cannot let you go.
Then I shall die here with longing.
answered the fawn.
When I hear the sound of the horn, I feel as if I should leap out of my skin.
Then the sister, seeing there was no help for it, unlocked the door with a heavy heart, and the fawn bounded away into the forest, well and merry. When the king saw him, he said to his hunters,
Now, follow him up all day long till the night comes, and see that you do him no hurt.
So as soon as the sun had gone down, the king said to the huntsman,
Now, come and show me the little house in the wood.
and when he got to the door, he knocked at it and cried.
Little sister, let me in.
Then the door opened, and the king went in, and there stood a maiden more beautiful than any he had seen before. The maiden shrieked out when she saw, instead of the fawn, a man standing there with a gold crown on his head. But the king looked kindly on her, took her by the hand, and said,
Will you go with me to my castle, and be my dear wife?
Oh, yes.
answered the maiden.
But the fawn must come too. I could not leave him.
And the king said,
He shall remain with you as long as you live, and shall lack nothing.
Then the fawn came bounding in, and the sister tied the cord of rushes to him, and led him by her own hand out of the little house. The king put the beautiful maiden on his horse, and carried her to his castle, where the wedding was held with great pomp. So she became Lady Queen, and they lived together happily for a long while. The fawn was well tended and cherished, and he gamboled about the castle garden. Now the wicked stepmother, whose fault it was that the children were driven out into the world, never dreamed but that the sister had been eaten up by wild beasts in the forest, and that the brother, in the likeness of a fawn, had been slain by the hunters. But when she heard that they were so happy, and that things had gone so well with them, jealousy and envy arose in her heart, and left her no peace, and her chief thought was how to bring misfortune upon them. Her own daughter, who was as ugly as sin, and had only one eye, complained to her, and said,
I never had the chance of being a queen. Never mind.
said the old woman to satisfy her.
When the time comes, I shall be at hand.
After a while the queen brought a beautiful baby boy into the world, and that day the king was out hunting. The old witch took the shape of the bedchamber woman, and went into the room where the queen lay, and said to her,
Come, the bath is ready. It will give you refreshment and new strength. Quick, or it will be cold.
Her daughter was within call, so they carried the sick queen into the bathroom, and left her there. And in the bathroom they had made a great fire, so as to suffocate the beautiful young queen. When that was managed, the old woman took her daughter, put a cap on her, and laid her in the bed in the queen's place, gave her also the queen's form and countenance, only she could not restore the lost eye. So, in order that the king might not remark it, she had to lie on the side where there was no eye. In the evening, when the king came home and heard that a little son was born to him, he rejoiced with all his heart, and was going at once to his dear wife's bedside to see how she did. Then the old woman cried hastily.
For your life, do not draw back the curtains to let in the light upon her. She must be kept quiet.
So the king went away and never knew that a false queen was lying in the bed. Now, when it was midnight and everyone was asleep, the nurse, who was sitting by the cradle in the nursery and watching there alone, saw the door open and the true queen come in. She took the child out of the cradle, laid it in her bosom, and fed it. Then she shook out its little pillow, put the child back again, and covered it with the coverlet. She did not forget the fawn either. She went to him where he lay in the corner, and stroked his back tenderly. Then she went in perfect silence out at the door, and the nurse next morning asked the watchman if anyone had entered the castle during the night, but they said they had seen no one. And the queen came many nights, and never said a word. The nurse saw her always, but she did not dare speak of it to anyone. After some time had gone by in this manner, the queen seemed to find voice, and said one night,
My child, my fawn, twice more I come to see. Twice more I come, and then the end must be.
The nurse said nothing, but as soon as the queen had disappeared, she went to the king and told him all. The king said,
Heaven, what do I hear? I will myself watch by the child tomorrow night.
So at evening he went into the nursery, and at midnight the queen appeared, and said,
My child, my fawn, once more I come to see. Once more I come, and then the end must be.
And she tended the child, as she was accustomed to do before she vanished. The king dared not speak to her, but he watched again the following night, and heard her say,
My child, my fawn, this once I come to see. This once I come, and now the end must be.
Then the king could contain himself no longer, but rushed towards her, saying,
You are no other than my dear wife.
Then she answered,
Yes, I am your dear wife.
and in that moment, by the grace of heaven, her life returned to her, and she was once more well and strong. Then she told the king the snare that the wicked witch and her daughter had laid for her. The king had them both brought to judgment, and sentence was passed upon them. The daughter was sent away into the wood, where she was devoured by the wild beasts, and the witch was burned, and ended miserably. And as soon as her body was in ashes, the spell was removed from the fawn, and he took human shape again. And then the sister and brother lived happily together until the end. Fairy tales give us good lessons. The bond between brothers and sisters, knowing how to love each other. Good always wins over evil. Sometimes you have to go through many ups and downs to have a happy life. Second fairy tale. The Lambkin and the Little Fish. There were once a little brother and a little sister, who loved each other with all their hearts. Their own mother was, however, dead, and they had a stepmother, who was not kind to them, and secretly did everything she could to hurt them. It so happened that the two were playing with other children in a meadow before the house, and there was a pond in the meadow which came up to one side of the house. The children ran about it, and caught each other, and played at counting out.
Any pinnock, let me live, and I to thee my bird will give. The little bird its straw shall seek, the straw I'll give to the cow to eat. The pretty cow shall give me milk, the milk I'll to the baker take. The baker he shall bake a cake, the cake I'll give unto the cat shall catch some mice for that. The mice I'll hang up in the smoke, and then you'll see the snow.
They stood in a circle while they played this, and the one to whom the word snow fell had to run away, and all the others ran after him and caught him. As they were running about so merrily, the stepmother watched them from the window, and grew angry. And as she understood arts of witchcraft, she bewitched them both, and changed the little brother into a fish, and the little sister into a lamb. Then the fish swam here and there about the pond, and was very sad. And the lambkin walked up and down the meadow, and was miserable, and could not eat or touch one blade of grass. Thus passed a long time, and then strangers came as visitors to the castle. The false stepmother thought,
This is a good opportunity.
and called the cook and said to him,
Go and fetch the lamb from the meadow and kill it. We have nothing else for the visitors.
Then the cook went away and got the lamb, and took it into the kitchen and tied its feet, and all this it bore patiently. When he had drawn out his knife and was whetting it on the doorstep to kill the lamb, he noticed the little fish swimming backwards and forwards in the water, in front of the kitchen sink and looking up at him. This, however, was the brother, for when the fish saw the cook take the lamb away, it followed them and swam along the pond to the house. Then the lamb cried down to it.
Ah, brother, in the pond so deep, how sad is my poor heart. Even now the cook he whets his knife, to take away my tender life.
The little fish answered.
Ah, little sister, up on Hig. How sad is my poor heart. While in this pond I lie.
When the cook heard that the lambkin could speak and said such sad words to the fish down below, he was terrified and thought this could be no common lamb, but must be bewitched by the wicked woman in the house. Then said he,
Be easy, I will not kill thee.
and took another sheep and made it ready for the guests, and conveyed the lambkin to a good peasant woman, to whom he related all that he had seen and heard. The peasant was, however, the very woman who had been foster mother to the little sister, and she suspected at once who the lamb was, and went with it to a wise woman. Then the wise woman pronounced a blessing over the lambkin and the little fish, by means of which they regained their human forms. And after this she took them both into a little hut in a great forest, where they lived alone but were contented and happy. Third fairy tale, The Three Snake Leaves. There was once on a time a poor man, who could no longer support his only son. Then said the son,
Dear father, things go so badly with us that I am a burden to you. I would rather go away and see how I can earn my bread.
So the father gave him his blessing, and with great sorrow took leave of him. At this time the king of a mighty empire was at war, and the youth took service with him, and with him went out to fight. And when he came before the enemy, there was a battle and great danger, and it rained shot until his comrades fell on all sides. And when the leader also was killed, those left were about to take flight, but the youth stepped forth, spoke boldly to them, and cried,
We will not let our fatherland be ruined.
Then the others followed him, and he pressed on and conquered the enemy. When the king heard that he owed the victory to him alone, he raised him above all the others, gave him great treasures, and made him the first in the kingdom. The king had a daughter who was very beautiful, but she was also very strange. She had made a vow to take no one as her lord and husband, who did not promise to let himself be buried alive with her if she died first.
If he loves me with all his heart,
Said she,
of what use will life be to him afterwards?
on her side she would do the same, and if he died first, would go down to the grave with him. This strange oath had up to this time frightened away all words, but the youth became so charmed with her beauty that he cared for nothing but asked her father for her.
But dost thou know what thou must promise?
Said the king.
I must be buried with her,
He replied.
if I outlive her. But my love is so great that I do not mind the danger.
Then the king consented, and the wedding was solemnized with great splendor. They lived now for a while happy and contented with each other. And then it befell that the young queen was attacked by a severe illness, and no physician could save her. And as she lay there dead, the young king remembered what he had been obliged to promise, and was horrified at having to lie down alive in the grave, but there was no escape. The king had placed sentries at all the gates, and it was not possible to avoid his fate. When the day came when the corpse was to be buried, he was taken down into the royal vault with it, and then the door was shut and bolted. Near the coffin stood a table on which were 4 candles, 4 loaves of bread, and 4 bottles of wine, and when this provision came to an end, he would have to die of hunger. And now he sat there full of pain and grief, ate every day only a little piece of bread, drank only a mouthful of wine, and nevertheless saw death daily drawing nearer. Whilst he thus gazed before him, he saw a snake creep out of a corner of the vault and approach the dead body. And as he thought it came to gnaw at it, he drew his sword and said,
As long as I live, thou shalt not touch her.
and hewed the snake in 3 pieces. After a time a second snake crept out of the hole, and when it saw the other lying dead and cut in pieces, it went back, but soon came again with 3 green leaves in its mouth. Then it took the 3 pieces of the snake, laid them together, as they ought to go, and placed one of the leaves on each wound. Immediately the severed parts joined themselves together. The snake moved, and became alive again, and both of them hastened away together. The leaves were left lying on the ground, and a desire came into the mind of the unhappy man who had been watching all this to know if the wondrous power of the leaves which had brought the snake to life again could not likewise be of service to a human being. So he picked up the leaves and laid one of them on the mouth of his dead wife, and the 2 others on her eyes. And hardly had he done this than the blood stirred in her veins, rose into her pale face, and colored it again. Then she drew breath, opened her eyes, and said,
Ah, God, where am I?
Thou art with me, dear wife.
He answered, and told her how everything had happened, and how he had brought her back again to life. Then he gave her some wine and bread, and when she had regained her strength, he raised her up, and they went to the door and knocked. and called so loudly that the sentries heard it and told the king. The king came down himself and opened the door. And there he found both strong and well, and rejoiced with them that now all sorrow was over. The young king, however, took the 3 snake leaves with him, gave them to a servant, and said,
Keep them for me carefully, and carry them constantly about thee. Who knows in what trouble they may yet be of service to us.
A change had, however, taken place in his wife. After she had been restored to life, it seemed as if all love for her husband had gone out of her heart. After some time, when he wanted to make a voyage over the sea to visit his old father, and they had gone on board a ship, she forgot the great love and fidelity which he had shown her, and which had been the means of rescuing her from death, and conceived a wicked inclination for the skipper. And once when the young king lay there asleep, she called in the skipper and seized the sleeper by the head, and the skipper took him by the feet, and thus they threw him down into the sea. When the shameful deed was done, she said,
Now let us return home and say that he died on the way. I will extol and praise thee so to my father that he will marry me to thee and make thee the heir to his crown.
But the faithful servant who had seen all that they did, unseen by them, unfastened a little boat from the ship, got into it, sailed after his master, and let the traders go on their way. He fished up the dead body, and by the help of the 3 snake leaves which he carried about with him, and laid on the eyes and mouth, he fortunately brought the young king back to life. They both rowed with all their strength day and night, and their little boat flew so swiftly that they reached the old king before the others did. He was astonished when he saw them come alone, and asked what had happened to them. When he learned the wickedness of his daughter, he said,
I cannot believe that she has behaved so ill, but the truth will soon come to light.
and bade both go into a secret chamber and keep themselves hidden from everyone. Soon afterwards the great ship came sailing in, and the godless woman appeared before her father with a troubled countenance. He said,
Why dost thou come back alone? Where is thy husband?
Ah, dear father,
she replied,
I come home again in great grief. During the voyage, my husband became suddenly ill and died. And if the good skipper had not given me his help, it would have gone ill with me. He was present at his death, and can tell you all.
The king said,
I will make the dead alive again.
and opened the chamber, and bade the 2 come out. When the woman saw her husband, she was thunderstruck, and fell on her knees and begged for mercy. The king said,
There is no mercy. He was ready to die with thee and restored thee to life again, but thou hast murdered him in his sleep, and shalt receive the reward that thou deservest.
Then she was placed with her accomplice in a ship which had been pierced with holes, and sent out to sea, where they soon sank amid the waves. The story emphasizes the importance of responsibility and keeping promises. Good deeds may lead to positive reciprocity, while negative actions can result in undesirable consequences. The tale warns about the negative consequences of betrayal and disloyalty in relationships. It serves as a reminder of the importance of love and trust in human connection. The 3 snake leaves highlights that decisions not only affect individuals but can also create complex and challenging situations for all involved parties. Thoughtfulness and careful consideration before making decisions are crucial. 4th fairy tale, The Wolf and the Fox. The wolf had the fox with him, and whatsoever the wolf wished, that the fox was compelled to do, for he was the weaker, and he would gladly have been rid of his master. It chanced that once as they were going through the forest, the wolf said,
Red Fox, get me something to eat, or else I will eat thee thyself.
Then the fox answered,
I know a farmyard where there are 2 young lambs. If thou art inclined, we will fetch one of them.
That suited the wolf, and they went thither, and the fox stole the little lamb, took it to the wolf, and went away. The wolf devoured it, but was not satisfied with one. He wanted the other as well, and went to get it. As, however, he did it so awkwardly, the mother of the little lamb heard him, and began to cry out terribly, and to bleat so that the farmer came running there. They found the wolf, and beat him so mercilessly, that he went to the fox limping and howling.
Thou hast misled me finely,
Said he,
I wanted to fetch the other lamb, and the country folks surprised me and have beaten me to a jelly.
The fox replied.
Why art thou such a glutton?
Next day, they again went into the country, and the greedy wolf once more said,
Red fox, get me something to eat, or I will eat thee thyself.
Then answered the fox,
I know a farmhouse where the wife is baking pancakes tonight. We will get some of them for ourselves.
They went there, and the fox slipped round the house, and peeped and sniffed about until he discovered where the dish was, and then drew down 6 pancakes and carried them to the wolf.
There is something further to eat,
Said he to him, and then went his way. The wolf swallowed down the pancakes in an instant, and said,
They make one want more.
and went thither and tore the whole dish down so that it broke in pieces. This made such a great noise that the woman came out, and when she saw the wolf she called the people, who hurried there, and beat him as long as their sticks would hold together till with 2 lame legs, and howling loudly, he got back to the fox in the forest.
How abominably thou hast misled me!
Cried he.
The peasants caught me, and tanned my skin for me.
But the fox replied.
Why art thou such a glutton?
On the 3rd day, when they were out together, and the wolf could only limp along painfully, he again said,
Red fox, get me something to eat, or I will eat thee thyself.
The fox answered,
I know a man who has been killing, and the salted meat is lying in a barrel in the cellar. We will get that.
Said the wolf.
I will go when thou dost, that thou mayest help me if I am not able to get away.
I am willing.
Said the fox, and showed him the bypaths and ways by which at length they reached the cellar. There was meat in abundance, and the wolf attacked it instantly and thought,
There is plenty of time before I need leave off.
The fox liked it also, but looked about everywhere, and often ran to the hole by which they had come in, and tried if his body was still thin enough to slip through it. The wolf said,
Dear fox, tell me why thou art running here and there so much, and jumping in and out.
I must see that no one is coming.
replied the crafty fellow.
Don't eat too much.
Then said the wolf,
I shall not leave until the barrel is empty.
In the meantime the farmer, who had heard the noise of the fox's jumping, came into the cellar. When the fox saw him, he was out of the hole at one bound. The wolf wanted to follow him, but he had made himself so fat with eating that he could no longer get through but stuck fast. Then came the farmer with a cudgel and struck him dead, but the fox bounded into the forest, glad to be rid of the old glutton. This story reminds us to cherish the love of friends, and is also a lesson for those who are accustomed to bullying others. Do you like the fairy tales I tell you today? Fairy tales give us many valuable lessons. Please like, share, subscribe to listen to beautiful fairy tales tomorrow. Bye bye!